It's the winter of 1997. Snow covers the streets of Pyongyang, but the city is quieter than ever. The factories have stopped, the trains no longer move. Across the country, thousands are dying each week, not from war, but from hunger. The government calls it the arduous march, but for the people, it's simply the time when everything stopped. Inside the capital, loudspeakers still praise the great leader, claiming North Korea is thriving. But in the countryside, children search for grass to eat. Entire villages vanish. By the end of the decade, as many as 3 million people will die, and the regime will pretend nothing happened. Somewhere near the Chinese border, a farmer named Kim Ji-young buries her youngest child beneath frozen soil. That night, she walks to the river with a single bat of rice hidden beneath her coat. Across the water, she can see faint lights, the border town of Dandong, China. She knows the punishment if she's caught, prison or worse. But hunger is louder than fear. She steps into the freezing current and crosses. She's not alone. By the late 1990s, tens of thousands will follow the same path. Farmers, soldiers, even party members, escaping the country they once swore to die for. What began as survival slowly turns into rebellion. Secret markets, Jangmadang, appear across towns and cities. Women trade cornmeal, soap, and foreign DVDs smuggled from China. Each sale is illegal, but every transaction chips away at state control. By 2005, more than 80% of North Koreans rely on these black markets to survive. The government sends inspectors and soldiers, but even they begin trading for food in secret. A regime built on obedience is now feeding itself on defiance. Whispers of South Korean music spread through USB drives and radios hidden in walls. The fear that once silenced a nation is breaking. And as the people begin to survive without their government, for the first time in history, North Korea starts to lose control of its own people. The collapse began with the sudden loss of the state's lifeline. When the Soviet Union fell in 1991, Pyongyang lost its primary trade partner, and with it, the cheap oil, fertilizer, and food imports that kept farms and factories alive. For decades, North Korea's economy had been propped up by Soviet aid. Without it, the system went into freefall. But what happens when an entire nation built on control suddenly runs out of the resources that make that control possible? The answer was catastrophic. Bad weather and floods in the mid-1990s destroyed what little harvest was left. The government's collectivized farms, already weakened by poor policy, simply couldn't recover. The combination of vanishing imports and crop failures triggered what would become known as the Public Distribution System, PDS, the network that rationed food to every household. For decades, it had been a symbol of loyalty and dependence, but now it was collapsing. Rations shrank from 600 grams per person per day to less than 200. Entire provinces stopped receiving deliveries. With the state failing, people turned to each other. Small, illegal street markets, Jangmadang, began to appear. Run mostly by women and farmers, they traded corn, firewood, used clothes, even bicycle parts. At first, the government tried to shut them down. But when soldiers' own families began buying from them, even they looked the other way. Could survival itself become an act of rebellion? Over time, these markets transformed into lifelines and cracks in the regime's power. Money, not ideology, became the new language of trust. People learned to trade, to negotiate, to make choices the state had never allowed them to make. But the collapse didn't stop at food. Tens of thousands of North Koreans crossed frozen rivers into China, looking for work, medicine, or a handful of rice. Some were caught and sent back. Others made it, bringing back radios, DVDs, and USB drives loaded with South Korean dramas. How dangerous can a movie or a song really be? In North Korea, deadly. Each smuggled story showed that life outside wasn't the nightmare people were taught to believe. It was hope in digital form. Proof that the regime had lied. Meanwhile, the government doubled down. Checkpoints multiplied, curfews tightened, and propaganda screamed louder. But the louder it got, the less people listened. Satellite images from the late 1990s showed it all. The lights of Pyongyang dimming, While South Korea blazed bright across the border, hunger wasn't the only thing spreading. It was knowledge, trade, and quiet defiance. A woman traded cornmeal at dawn and became a merchant. A soldier sold his ration card for rice. A family bribed a guard to cross a frozen river. Teenagers passed USB drives for money and songs. Each act was small, but together, they marked a silent revolution. For the first time in decades, North Koreans were learning to live without the state. And that's when the regime realized something terrifying. Control isn't lost in a single rebellion. It slips away, one choice at a time.